naturtrüb und erfrischend fruchtig. Richtig lecker. Krombacher Radler Naturtrüb. Der kräftige Radlergenuss aus naturtrübem Krombacher Kellerbier und fruchtiger Zitronenlimonade. Erfrischend fruchtig und weniger süß im Geschmack. Krombacher Radler Naturtrüb. Probieren Sie es selbst.
Blog Talk Radio.
There is no image you can hold, no thought you can think that encompasses the great self. Your essence is immortal and unchanging, yet it is the foundation for all that moves. Rest in the shimmering emptiness that is the source of this world, and remember who you are. Hello everyone, this is Chrism, and I'd like to welcome you to a conversation about your Kundalini Awakening experience. That was a reading from the Radiant Sutras. And for those of you who are my private students, the last line, it says, and remember who you are. This is something that we have been discussing for some time. And so I just want you to remember, those of you who I work with individually, who you are. Who you are. And I would like to welcome my co-host for this program, and actually the benefactor, the provider, and you know, the European hub for Kundalini Awakening systems in Europe. This would be the Celtic queen of questionable comforts, Santara. Welcome, Santara.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's good to be here, as always, on a Wednesday. And it's good to see everybody in the chat room. Hello, Elizabeth and Sukha. Good to see you and everybody. And it's good to be here, Chrism.
Yes. Hello, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez, typing. It's a new addendum to her last name. And then guest 1099, sounds like an IRS tax form. And KAS 11004, which I think would be you. And then hello, Sukha. Sukha, I'd love to have a chat with you sometimes. You come to a few shows, would like to know your input and how this show may be helping or affecting you in any way. Wow, look at this. Yes, hello, Rosemary. Mm-hmm. Hello, Eileen. So everybody's here. All right. Do we have any announcements that we should say right off the bat?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just after spotting there that Elizabeth has made an announcement in relation to the seminar, but I'll wait for a while to talk about that until you've spoken with Rosemary or Eileen. But if I could just begin.
No. Let's jump on that right now. That looks pretty good. That's an excellent flight. Jeez Louise. I want one of those flights, Rosemary.
It's Elizabeth is actually typing that to you there, Chrism. She's saying
Elizabeth,
hello
thank
to
you.
all. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really nice because, wow, look at that price. I mean, I remember I flew back to visit Eileen at one time for $200, but that was like 8 years ago or somewhere like that. Wow, $228. That's a great price. So anybody that would like to come out to the Minnesota seminar at the end of September, last weekend of September, please give Rosemary Goliath a call or we're just going to bring her right on here now. Hi, Rosemary. Make your announcement.
Yes. The phone number, please call me, 651-452-3161. And if you prefer email, would be rosemaryg@usinternet.com. And we are having conversations with people like Elizabeth more often and closer to. So that is always.
I missed that last part. I'm going to assume that is always an extreme joy and
yes,
blissful event.
Yeah, a version of that is what I said, but I like yours better.
Okay. All right. Well, hey. Well, thank you. And did you see the price, $228, that Elizabeth posted up here?
I didn't see that, but she mentioned in an email about it.
Great price. Let's look into that for people.
Yes,
and that's from the Northwest on Delta Airlines, and she says that's a round trip. So that sounds wonderful.
It's a great price. Gosh. Okay, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez and Rosemary G at US Usernet. What is it?
US Internet.
usinternet.com. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Okay.
So
go ahead.
I just give the website, Chrism, where people can go if they would like to make a donation to support the work that you do, to support people that come to Kundalini Awakening and to you for support during their Kundalini Awakening process. Go to is www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com, and on the right-hand side you will see the donate button. That is www.ascension-kundalini.blogspot.com. And if you don't have a pen with you, you can just Google Ascension Blogspot and you'll get the address on a Google search.
Thank you, Amelia Santara. Okay, everybody, we're going to get this show on the road. There is no image you can hold, no thought you can think that encompasses the Great Self. And this is so true. I'm reading from the first paragraph of the Radiant Sutras. This one happens to be on page 251. There is no image you can hold, no thought you can think that encompasses the Great Self. It's just not possible within the 5 sense paradigm. So, for instance, I've had my Kundalini Awakening for a few years now. And when I placed my attention at above the, shall we say, the third eye or the sixth chakra, everything becomes taken into the only way I can describe it is a level of infinity. So the top of the head and the forehead and, around behind the back of the head, that all just kind of disappears. If you follow the symmetrical circular explosion, of a flower or something of that nature, you can kind of see that reflected in if you were able to picture it, you'd see a sphere that just keeps getting broader and broader, wider and wider, more and more encompassing more and more, and this is how the Kundalini comes to me when I place my attention at a certain area within a certain context and concept of the Kundalini. This is one of the areas that I tend to visit regularly. I tend to place my attention there and just kind of feel what the multiverse, the omniverse is saying. And it's so true. But when the Radiant Sutra says there is no image you can hold, no thought you can think that encompasses the Great Self, that is true if you're looking at it from an outside-in vantage point. When you look at it from an inside-out vantage point, it might be better to write it this way. There is no image you cannot hold, no thought you cannot think that doesn't encompass the great self. So when you look at it from a Kundalini perspective, because grace has its hand upon your shoulder and is changing you from your atomics, from pre-atomic structures all the way up through the actual mature organism, it's changing the individual completely changing it. And this individual is, by virtue of it being a creation in this multiverse, is already really an aspect or a spark, shall we say, of the great self. That's already happened by being alive, right? By having that grace, that divinity. And yet, when the Kundalini comes, that's a whole different level of communication between the great self and the individual. And one of the big symptoms that happens during a spinal sweep is the oneness event, that oneness with all creation, that oneness with God, that oneness with that which is within and that which is without, that which is above and that which is below. That nexus of lines, that nexus of experience, that changes you as well. When you reach that point of God consciousness, don't mistake it for all of a sudden you're Cecil B. DeMille, right? And God said, and so forth. You're not Cecil B. DeMille. Unless, of course, you really you're going to walk that Hollywood path, and of course you can be Cecil B. if you want. Quick, get the internet address. You're not God in that sense. You are with God and of God, and you are a component of that infinite ocean that we call divinity or God. But you are not the comic book, Hollywood, action hero version of God. Unless, of course, you're teaching people about Kundalini and things of that nature. I think I can allow for that caveat. For instance, I tell you what, the Kundalini downloads things into your head. A lot of people know this, and so you have the Kundalini. You're in relationship with the divine, and you're thinking, well, what can I do? How can I assist? What can I do to help other people have such an amazing level of greatness occur to them in their lives? How can I teach them about this? Where can I take up where our government has failed us and where our religious institutions and our teaching institutions, our educational institutions have failed us? And I thought, well, gosh, a movie seems to be the way to reach a lot of people. Immediately, 2 movies were downloaded into my head. The scripts, where they take place, the characterizations, the characters themselves. A lot of the plot, the twists, the good guys, the bad guys, the good girls, the bad girls, the good corporate structure, the bad corporate structure. It goes, the Kundalini, as soon as you begin to open to it, like I said, I place my attention on the crown daily, all the time, actually, and I feel what the universe has to say to me. And whenever I come up with a question, or I'm looking at an individual person, say I'm doing a Skype session, I'm looking at an individual person, well, Kundalini brings into sharp focus certain issues that person needs to hear, but also certain issues that would be a greater complement of information that is itself giving itself to us through the medium that we're most comfortable receiving. And in this case, and in this day and this age, it would be, I think, a digital format, a Hollywood format, a format that has all the marketing and all of the, the different areas of that. And so I have the two movies. If people are interested in the premise, then I'll go into the premise for both of them just to see. Oh, look, here we are. Look at this. Hi, Bart. Good to see you. Yeah, right on. Nice of you to join us. Mailbox 99. Right on. Okay. So, with the Kundalini, I'm going to suggest that you read it both ways. That first paragraph. There is no image you can hold. There is no image you cannot hold. There is no thought you can think, no thought you cannot think that does or does not encompass the Great Self. And then as we continue this sutra, your essence is immortal and unchanging, yet it is the foundation for all that moves. All that moves is another way of saying change. So basically, your essence is immortal and unchanging. So your essence is immortal and still, and then yet it is the foundation for all that moves, that changes. So stillness is what causes change, and I'll also suggest change is what causes stillness. Rest in the shimmering emptiness. Once again, they're exploring Kundalini information here by writing opposites. Shimmering emptiness. Emptiness should be actually a lack of light as well. A lack of movement. A lack of anything to see. Okay. But they're suggesting you rest in the shimmering emptiness because it's that Kundalini radiance, it's that Kundalini energetic expression that is coming out of you, even in the spiritual form, even in the form of the physical, the full-on physical, daily, 8 to 5, whatever person. The Kundalini is still expressing fully through. It's just focusing in different areas, allowing that person to have that job or drive that car or get those kids ready for school or do whatever. The Kundalini is extremely versatile. It knows you better than you know you. And so it knows when to come and when to go. When the kids need to get dressed, when, just leave that to the 5 cents person. They know how to do that. Rest in the shimmering emptiness. That is the source of this world. Shimmering emptiness. That is the source of this world. And remember who you are. Who you are. And once again, as I mentioned before, for the private students, who you are is a very different question for you than it is to our regular audience member here. Okay, just so I want you to make that distinction. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Everyone. You are that spark of divinity. You are that grace incarnate. Grace incarnate. Okay, Latin for in the flesh. You are the grace in the flesh. You are the living word. A Kundalini awakened person or a person striving or working towards the achievement of Kundalini awakening is definitely a chosen person, somebody who has somehow entered the stream of information that allows for an enlightenment equation to begin. Outside of say, normal refinement channels, the ego, the basic ego things, grudges, anger, hatred, murder, mayhem, crime, all that stuff. When you begin to walk the Kundalini path, as I've said many times, that path also begins to walk you. And you begin to be compelled to work and express your life within the understandings of trust, love, forgiveness, patience, honesty, truth. But not everybody can handle the same amounts of that recipe as others. And this is, of course, where forgiveness comes into a great service for people. We'll say, on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the easiest and 10 being the worst, a person might respond to pain levels at say, number 6 far differently than the person next to them. We have different karmas. We have different physiologies. We have different psychologies. We were raised in different families. We were programmed in similar but different ways. And so our response to pain is also going to be similar but different. And so the Kundalini recognizes this within the individual. Kundalini individuates people. Just as when you're in the God consciousness and you look out upon the environment and you can see every twig, you can feel every pebble, every speck, everything, every speck of dust, every drop in the sea, everything you feel at the same time, at once. But it's a timeless moment because it's not wrapped up within time, but within the time stream, that length of time that the person is within that expression is different for each person. Some things are to be experienced in very, very brief momentary flashes. Any kind of an extended visit would, damage the person. And for those of you who have gone beyond the mere exploration of Kundalini as a, wow, what's this all about? And, as a kind of a curiosity source. For those of you that have gone further into it, that have begun to experience some of the symptoms, that have, say, begun to practice the safeties, begun to do some forgivenesses in their lives, conscious, purposeful forgiveness, maybe even doing a recapitulation. People, you have to understand that the safeties protocols, which is what I'm taking from right now, the safeties protocols are a standalone activation equation for Kundalini. You do the safeties every day, twice a day. Say within 30 to 60 days, you're going to have a Kundalini activation. But you have to really do it. You can't just pretend to do it. You can't go, okay, I'm going to do the safeties, but I don't like that 4th Tibetan. It's just too hard to do, so I'm going to skip that. But I'll do all the rest of them. Okay, you don't get to do it that way. You do them all or you don't do them. Now, you can do them sequentially in a sense, so just to build up strength. So, for instance, when you just start out to do, the 5 Tibetans, I only want you to do 5 or 6 turns to the right, not 21. I only want you to do, 3 to 4 of right number 4 when you get to that. So you do 5 or 6 of the spinning, and then you lay down and you do 5 or 6 of the 2nd Tibetan, 3rd Tibetan, 4th Tibetan, 5th Tibetan. I don't want you trying to do all 21 or trying to be, super yoga dude or dudette and say, oh, I can do that, and there you go, hurting yourself. Don't do that. Don't let your ego determine how enthusiastic your practice of the safeties is going to be. Let your higher functioning self begin to make those determinations. Right. So the practice of the safeties is a standalone activation sequence. 30 to 60 days, if you're able to do a very, very strong and sincere form of practice with the safeties, really doing the forgivenesses, really the tolerances, the honesty, the truth, the nobility of those types of behaviors will begin to really have an effect upon your energetic anatomy. Thoughts and emotions and actions are energy in motion. They have an energetic source, but they also have an energetic expression across the different frequencies of energetic expression that we combine with every day. You know, a wheat plant has its own energetic frequency that it broadcasts into the multiverse. So does a blade of grass. So does a tomato, a peach, a pine tree, an animal. You know, I mean, these frequencies that we intermingle with daily, you know, they have the ability to change the course of our lives, the destiny of our lives. And then when you mix in a divine ingredient such as the Kundalini, well, that changes things in a very big way. Okay, and so remember the amplification aspect of the Kundalini and how it may begin to amplify how you begin to live your life in this world. As I said before, this is not in a linear time stream equation. You don't get to, you know, it's not going to be that easy for you because it deals with dual non-duality. It's the music between the notes, the ideas between the words, between the phrases. It's the opposites joining. You know, the opposites joining. So, you know, in this way, you know, it really is important that we begin to understand how this may affect us. Now, one of the ways that I was asked, it was suggested to me by my Kundalini earlier today to talk about some of the fast ways that people like to come into this. I have covered this information before, but evidently it bears repeating. If you're not into drugs, if you're not into, changing your religion, becoming a Hindu, becoming a Buddhist, becoming this or that, if you kind of like who you are and how you are at this moment, you know, then a lot of you are just going to go ahead and explore your own Kundalini your own way, and I think that's great. It's typically a longer, harder path because, you know, you're, but not so much these days. There's a lot of information on the Kundalini out there if you're really focused on looking at it and looking for it, and the Kundalini can really develop that level of focus in a person. So, a lot of people are going to try to explore Kundalini through sex because they've heard of Tantra, and in the West, and I'm not going to say for all people in the West, but certainly for a good general amount of people in the West, Tantra equals sex. It equals the male anatomy blending with the female anatomy. Okay. That is also used for procreative purposes. And, you know, people are going to do this because, you know, it's, as far as I know, and I'm not sure about this, so you may want to check with your local authorities. I believe Tantra is legal in the United States. Now, that may be changing, you know, the Supreme Court and all. But Tantra at this point, I think, may be legal in the United States. And so a lot of people are going to practice it as a pathway towards enlightenment. And it, you know, Mantak Chia, he talks about it a lot, you know, and the Taoists, you know, the Taoists, the Taoists of ancient China and actually today's China, they like to practice the many different ways they've come up with to try to control the Kundalini. They really like the control thing. Okay, and I'm not going to deprive them of that. And Kundalini has come through them as it has come through, you know, almost all of the cultures of this world and given very specific information for the Taoists to practice. As a matter of fact, we use some of the Taoist techniques in the safeties protocols. And so I'm certainly not coming down on the Taoists. But where say the Taoist ideology and say the Kundalini as it comes through me separate is really in the level of control and who is really in charge. And, you know, is it the ego self that knows more about the energetic anatomy of the individual, or is it the divine self that knows more about that area of the body. And I'm always going to go with the divine self. It has no barriers. There is no veil for the divinity within. Okay. But I agree with a lot of what the Taoists say, and I like a lot of some of the more interesting techniques that allow for a stronger flow of the energy, like tongue up. Your tongue tip up behind your upper front teeth. That allows for a more complete and balanced flow between the upper and the lower, and that's fairly essential. And to the degree that genetically, many of us that are predisposed towards having the Kundalini also have a resting lingual position that allows that tip to be in constant contact. Constant contact if you're not eating or doing whatever you do. Okay. So the Taoists have some very, very good techniques. Their sexual techniques, however, they tend to, well, I guess I have to talk about it. Okay. So in the West, there are fairly strong preconceived notions about what is and is not a beneficial sexual composure to have within a religious or spiritual seeking equation. Within the Kundalini context, this has been studied and applied in many, many different interpretations within the belief system of Tantra. I say belief system because it's as much a religion as it is a series of positions for better sex. I mean, it's really not even about the better sex. It's far more about energizing and balancing and awakening, in some cases for people, the Kundalini within them. In my very first seminar, one person who showed up had received her awakening from having tantric sex. I mean, right, at that moment, she, and her partner didn't awaken, but she did. You see, and so, there's a lot of disinformation, or let's say misinformation, with regards to Tantra and what works and what doesn't work. You have to take in consideration always the individual karmic expression of the person. And there's not going to be too many psychics that can go up to you and go, "Oh, Chrism, I see. Wow, oh yeah, look at that. Oh gosh, what an amazing past life." Because of your past lives, well, you're in a Kundalini refinement equation, and you're going to have to change your life completely, maybe 2 or 3 times. That'll be $60 for my 22nd. You typically won't. I mean, I'm not going to say you'll never find a psychic who won't be able to at least describe to your Kundalini, the fact that you are on that refinement path. But most psychics won't be able to do that. It's really none of their business. Within the Kundalini context, you will be given very, very, very specific instruction with regard to the physical mingling aspect of the Tantra. And of course, in the West, we misinterpret, or we kind of go ahead and edit it. It's just like, well, I don't like what it says about that part of sex. I think I'm just going to change it to where I like it, and I'll just go ahead and do it that way. That's what we do here in the West. That's what a lot of people do. They say, if you don't like it, leave it. And for some people, if you don't like it, change it, and then you'll like it. Well, you're also going to get unexpected consequences as well. These are not little recipes that have lasted, 10,000 years because, they make people laugh. People have tried these situations for thousands and thousands of years, and these are the ones that have worked for people. So don't feel free to go and change a recipe or a procedure or a practice. Do it the way it has been taught you to do. And furthermore, do it the way your Kundalini makes you feel is the correct method for you to do. And so, which brings us right back to Tantra. Tantra for person A is not going to be the same as Tantra for person B. In the West, there's always going to be a level of interest with Tantra because it's a sexual thing. And because our society is so pulled this way and that way with the sexual maturation occurring within the population, whether you can see it or not, it is actually maturing for people here in the United States. And that maturation is just slow, and it's just slow, and we have to get through a lot of the fear ideas and some of the readings from some of the holy books that say sex is this or sex is that, and we are maturing. It's just a slow maturation process and a painful one in many ways as we look at genital mutilation and Sharia and the bondage of young people enslaved by religious organizations, whether it's in Ireland or Italy or United States or China. A lot of these things, it's all attributable to the one subject of sex. And within the Enlightenment process, people are, as we speak right now, they're working the tantric angle. And I'm supportive of the tantric angle. I think it's very, very important for people to know about themselves and to know what their options are, what the greater options are, especially within the Kundalini context, where the Kundalini can just take your libido away, gone, never to be seen again as far as the person knows. I get the question quite a bit. Well, what happened to my libido, Chrism? What did I do to make the Kundalini angry? I can't have sex. I'm running out of excuses for my wife. And it reminds me of that line from Braveheart, where the French assistant to the new queen princess says, "The English don't know what a tongue is for." Well, there's my very first Tantra joke of the session. Okay. So within the whole ideology of Tantra, it is the sacred male and the sacred female interacting with each other in such a combination that allows for the Kundalini to be awakened. First of all, you're going to have a karma that allows for this to happen. And for those of you that are kind of thrown off by the word karma, let's just call it destiny. You'll need a positive destiny marker, to have the Kundalini awaken within any kind of practice or commitment that a person is making towards that activation or awakening. Okay. Karmically, from a destiny aspect, you're going to need to have a positive indication, from your higher mental functioning self and your spiritual self, that the Kundalini is the route that you're going to take. Typically, this is so, or you don't even get to really know the word Kundalini. It's not really something that comes your way. You don't read it in books or magazines or see it on TV. Probably the closest thing you'd come to it is Kundalini yoga commercials on the internet or something like that. If that. And so as we practice the Tantra, and a lot of people will read Mantak Chia's work, and Mantak Chia is a guy from China who studied with the Taoists for a number of years, met a woman, I think from Thailand, who was a Christian, and he changed his religion to Christianity for love. Isn't that romantic? And And so he and his wife have written all these books about the Taoist or the Taoist secrets of sex, the Taoist secrets of this, and that. And I think, I think the information they give out is actually quite powerful, quite, potential for quite a bit, but they have no idea about the Kundalini and what it is they're really bringing onto their people when the Kundalini is awakened through those techniques. And they don't give any follow-up. They don't give any, it is what it is. People will do, they'll find what they need to find. All right, and I'm looking here. Looks like we have a person. I'm not sure if that's a question coming up or not. So I will continue. If you do have a question about Tantra or about your Kundalini Awakening experience, any aspect of it, please call in United States area code 347-934-0026, 347-934-0026 to call in. And looks like I'm going to ask Her Holiness to come on board. So Santara, could you come online? She's waking up. Get up.
I'm up. I was speaking with somebody on the other line, and I came back.
Oh, they're listening. I got you. Okay.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Yep, I see it. Thank you, my dear. Go back to sleep.
You're welcome. Okay.
All right. So let's go back to Tantra. There are many forms of Tantra. Tantra comes in many, many different ways. Tantra, to one meaning of that word, there are many different meanings of the word Tantra. It's a Sanskrit term. But Tantra to the West, of course, equals sex. Tantra to someone who's a little more educated in what the rishis were putting out, well then, that's a way to establish self-realization, to become enlightened. You can use Tantra as a way to honor the sacred marriage between sacred female and sacred male, and through that honoring, not the physical child is not created, but the angelic child, the Kundalini Awakening directive is awakened within the person. And that directive, that consciousness is opened into the body at that time. And that consciousness has its agenda. And that agenda is the changing of the complete physiology and psychology, the spiritual, the emotional aspects of the human being, completely changing them into an organism that can handle greater connectivity with the divine source. Now, I'm just putting that in a very, shall we say, factual way or scientific way as I can. This is something that's the agenda of the Kundalini as it begins to awaken. And this is also the genesis of Kriyas, the automatic spontaneous movements, body movements, body positions, the automatic and spontaneous vocalizations of sound, the Kriyas of hearing voices or hearing chirps or hearing insects or hearing bees or hearing chanting. That would be an audio Kriya. Visions would be, a visual Kriya. So visions being seen floating across, faces staring at you, or suns, really bright lit, tiny little pinpoint suns flying around the room or flying around you. Blue is one of the typical colors. White gold is another color. Silver and gold play. Silver, gold, and purple play a very significant position in a lot of these visions. Iridescent colors that seem to be lit up by a brilliant source, something that is really, really a flash, would occur as a flash upon the the virtual optic nerve with eyes closed. So like the function of memory can provide a person with a brilliant flash. And so because of those engrams, and because they're being caused, these engrams are being formed around a Kundalini ideology or experience. These things can be very, very sharp in how they continuously expose themselves to a person within the memory format, but also within the actual event occurring format. And so this all ties back to Tantra as well. Okay, you don't just have sex. Tantra is not just about having sex. It's the left-hand path, as I think I mentioned before. It's the left-hand path. It's the sacred feminine, the path of the honoring of the sacred feminine, and most importantly, the honoring of the marriage between sacred male and sacred feminine. And a lot of these, because of the United States citizenship being so twisted and fearful and generally angry and fearful about sex, here in the West, they come out with different forms of Tantra, like doing Tantra with your clothes on, or energetic Tantra and things of that nature. And I've done a lot of Tantra in my life, and it's a worthy exploration if you can really be honest with yourself about it. If you can come in honestly with your emotions, first of all, you need emotional maturation, or you need to be in a process of emotional maturation. By that I mean because of your practice of Tantra, it's not just a sexual event, it's a lifestyle. And so as you live this lifestyle, the Kundalini and your higher mental functioning self begin to play a role in your training towards Kundalini awakening. And part of that training will be to begin to initiate spiritual practices into and blending with the sexual practice. So, for instance, for those of you who are familiar with a mantra is a sentence or a couple of phrases or a phrase that are a vocalization of something of spiritual merit. Okay, I am at one with the all that I am is a mantra. I am at one with the all that I am. And so as you are with your spouse or your intended or the person that you love, and you're engaging in Tantra, and I mean physical, fully, what do they call it? Physical, fully penetrating Tantra. Okay, full penetration Tantra. As you are doing that, you are I'm going straight into music here. As you say the mantra, certain creative forces are coming together within the physical action of the merging between the two. For the male, there are 7 glands that contribute to the formation of a spiritual physical plasma. Sperm and semen can be seen as physical, energetic plasmas. These are forces that individually have their own energetic signature, but when these substances are mixed together, the energetic signatures embrace each other, forming a very powerful and yet very, what's the word? It's a powerful event, yet it is a very brief moment of time. But it's a replicable event, and so that moment of time can be extended. But boy, It's just so hard to describe. Anyway, so I'm going to take a bounce into astrology right now. Okay, so the astrological clock is always ticking. You know, you're always moving day in, day out through the different manifestations of the astrological understandings. And so when I say it's a replicable event, you know, the very next day you can do the same thing. Well, you can't do the very same thing the very next day, because each moment in time is a very unique and precious jewel that cannot ever be replicated. It can be recorded to some degree, but it cannot be replicated. It cannot be replicated. And so for me to say that, well, okay, you can do fully penetrating Tantra, and, you know, if it doesn't work that day, well, you can do it the next night or the next day. It's not that way. I'm not suggesting that at all, because there's so many things that change by agreement with the days and the nights as they proceed through the calendars and through the seasons and through the equinox and the solstice. You know, it's a very, very, very conscious developmental opportunity that we have by being in a body and being subject to astronomical time counts and Julian calendar time counts and gravitational time counts and Kundalini based time counts. You know, we have all these different time frequencies to adjust to, but we do it naturally, no worries. To most of us. If you're inside a phenomena from the Kundalini that kind of screws around with your understandings of time, don't panic. It's temporary. Trust in your Kundalini. If you have a teacher and the teacher knows what they're talking about, then trust in that teacher. Okay, that's why you're with them. And that's why the Kundalini's with you. Nobody that has Kundalini awakened or activated is without a teacher. The internal teacher is always there, and that will be the Kundalini. It's the internal teacher that locates the external teacher, not the other way around. You understand? It's the internal teacher that locates the external teacher. Okay, I just want you to kind of wrap your mind around that. Okay, so as we get back to Tantra, I am going to suggest that you and your loved one, if you're going to follow Tantra, that you need to follow Tantra. You need to follow the rules of Tantra. And in the Kundalini Awakening aspect, those 7 components that is developed by the female and the male, independent of each other, when they come together, they form that unity. They form that 2 that is 1, that 1 that is 2. And so as you're in the process of that, without the obvious exploding climax, I want you to deprive yourself of that. Take yourself and back off from that. So in a sense, what you're doing is you're charging a capacitor. Okay, you're taking 1 unit of voltage, putting it through a capacitor, and you're coming out with a greater level of voltage at the other end of that capacitor. So when you take yourself up to the edge of that explosion and then gently walk back without fluidic release. For men, I don't want you to have fluidic release. Typically, the women will not have a similar fluidic release using different fluids. Now, you can't, the lubrication aspect is just going to be what it is. And that is not classified in the same way as some of the more luminous fluids that either gender can express. Okay. And this is a luminous practice. Don't mistake it at all. This is a luminous practice. This is a practice that is designed to bring you into grace. And And, talking about being brought into grace for a little bit here, it's not the easiest place to just come, knocking on the door. You have to really begin to understand that it is not the way that your books and your ideologies and your fantasies may have made it into. It's not Disneyland, okay? Some parts of it may make you think you're in Disneyland, but it's not Disneyland, and it's not, happy fairy dust sprinkling over marshmallows and cotton candy floating down a little stream of chocolate with marshmallow bunnies feeding on the banks. No. No marshmallow bunnies with the Kundalini. Well, I take it back. Sometimes you'll get those marshmallow bunnies. If you're into all that sugar. Okay. But it's typically a challenging path. Challenges your basic understandings of life and reality. So for those of you that are involved in Tantra and you're making headway with Tantra, really begin to make headway with the practice of the safeties. You're going to want to do that. Remember, the safeties were written by the Kundalini for those coming into the Kundalini. They work. They're effective. But you got to do them. For those of you that are continuing with Tantra, regardless, I want you to feel free to say your mantras. I am at one with the all that I am, or Om Namaha Shivaya Om, or even just saying the AUM, Aum, as you're inside of the merging. Do this. Bring God into it. Bring divinity into it. Those are the most important aspects. Not whether or not, my computer just showed me a picture of the CERN giant in England, CERNE giant, just as I was saying that. And for those of you that look up the CERN giant, CERNE giant, in England, you'll kind of get a kick out of what I just said. If you look that up in Google and go to image, you'll exactly understand why I'm kind of laughing at that. It should feel good too. It should feel really good. Don't buy in to anything that doesn't resonate with your Kundalini in a positive way. And let's really, really begin to discern what is Kundalini and what might be an entity. And this is, once again, another area where the safeties can really come in handy, because if you're following the noble behaviors, forgiveness, loving service, helpfulness, compassion, honesty, truth, all of these things, if you're following those actions, then you'll attract those teachings that will help you strengthen those attitudes. Okay? And so sometimes, sometimes those challenging attitudes, people will classify as bad or terrible because it made them change. It made them think. It made them act in a way that they were not used to acting in or comfortable with. And this will happen within the tantric range as well. For instance, it's the sacred male is usually in contact with the earth. It is the sacred feminine that comes down and dances on the stage of the sacred male. And the sacred male should just hold still and let the magic of the Shakti begin to control his levels of rigidity and flexibility and whatnot. You see, and this is very different than how your typical United States conception of that activity is. And you can say the mantras, and you can say the affirmations. You can say things like "I love you," or "I give myself to you." You can say the affirmations to the divine. You can say the word Shakti, Shiva, Jesus, Mary. I mean, whatever the sacred feminine and male in you is, you can say. You have permission. God is not going to frown on you for bringing God and Goddess into the actions that are, reflected by God and Goddess when Kundalini awakens. As above, so below. As below, so above. As without, so within. As within, so without. If you have any questions about this aspect of the Kundalini Awakening journey, please feel free to call in at 347, that's a United States area code, 347-934-0026, 347-934-0026. And as you have these thoughts and if you have these feelings, if your Kundalini wants you doing Tantra, then guess what? That will be arranged for you in your sleep as well as in your waking moments. Your teacher or an ideology of the sacred female or the sacred male will come to you in the dream life, and you will have those passionate cravings engaged in your evolutionary process during those moments. And you'll be given instruction on whether or not it wants you to seek anyone outside of its internal presence within you. And I'll suggest that you wait for that confirmation. Now, as you bring yourself up to the edge in the tantric format now, we're in the middle of the merge, and we're bringing ourselves up to a great energetic explosion that typically culminates in the expression of luminous fluids. Don't let that occur. Men. Take a step back. Take a step back. Go get a glass of water. I want you to keep that charge in you, and this goes for the women as well. I want you to keep that charge in you. Because as you build up those charges will begin to condense and coalesce into a channel that will begin to mature a Kundalini awakening event for that individual. Every time we have sex with a person, a part of us is left with that person. Every single time. I don't care if you're a prostitute, I don't care if you're whatever it is. If you've had physical sex with another person that way, there's a certain aspect of you that is imprinted upon the other, and vice versa. Sex is as natural as breathing, as walking barefoot, as, swimming through the ocean. It is nothing to be diluted with fear or anger or hatred or any kind of hurtful, bonded restriction. Sex is a gift of God to this species, so that this species may evolve not only from a physical basis of having children, but also in a spiritual way of having enlightenment, having aspects of enlightenment visited upon us, within us, all the time. Giving us that drive to evolve, giving us that urge to seek out and understand. If this is how you are practicing the Tantra, then I encourage you to continue that practice. For men, I want you to idolize and give your love and give your attentions, your emotional attentions and your physical attentions to the sacred feminine in your life. Women, the same for the sacred male in your life. Make it a point and honor that point. No pun intended. Tantra is a very, very clean, very, very good, healthy way to come into sacred knowledge that you need to have anyway with the Kundalini. And I'm talking about fully penetrative sexual Tantra. I'm not talking about this, oh, you can keep your underwear on. How many girls have heard that line? Oh, you can keep your underwear on. So, sorry. If nobody's laughing on the flash chat, I better shut up now. Okay. So, yeah. For those of you, that can afford a practice of a tantric nature by having a partner, then honor that partner. Say, bring the spiritualism into this. Bring the mantras into this. Bring the connection into this. Make it a viability and a validation within you. Do you understand? Take it joyfully and take it seriously. People have a lot of problems, with Tantra because it goes against, say, a Christian format, or there are forms of Christian Tantra. You can go through the Gospels, you can go through the King James, and you can find levels of Tantra, all over the place in the Bible. It's just how we choose to focus on our holy books that holds our attention. And somebody decided that we were going to make sex and love and enlightenment through the practices of sex and love either a secret affair or a forbidden affair or both. Certainly within the context of the formation of the United States. We have to make it secret so that we can have it. Basically, is kind of what it's saying. Well, I'm saying no. The only person we need to have power over is ourself, and that's going to come through a complete understanding of ourselves, and that includes our sexual selves as well. Now, I say all this, and I'm giving people, I think, a lot of permission to have the tantric experience, and I think it's, once again, I do support the experience. It's a great experience, but it will bring things up in your space that you're not used to having to deal with. Issues of taboo, issues of blockage, issues of emotional abuse, issues of abandonment, all kinds of different issues can come up for people that are attempting to walk the tantric path. People will hate you for teaching them Tantra. I have a lot of people that don't appreciate Chrism because they were taught Tantra in the way they asked to be taught it, and yet they refused to do any of the emotional or psychological balances that came with it. And so they had an implosion event, and they're all full of blame. They're all full of blame. Some didn't even have it. They just want to be full of blame. All I can do is give the experience, give the information that I'm allowed to give, and you are going to have to do some of that work. Even listening to my voice right now, as we mentioned, I think last week, even as you hear this voice inside your head, is the Kundalini that resonates through me, and that has resonated through so many different other people, is resonating through you right now. The oneness that is what you're becoming. The two that are one and the one that is two. Tantra is only there if you want to practice it that way. You can also just practice the safeties. You can turn your safeties practice into your own form of tantric practice. For anyone that has a question about this subject or any other subject that pertains to the Kundalini, call 347-934-0026. And as I mentioned before, this may bleed into your dream life, and so you need to understand this. It's been difficult throughout the years with the dream aspect of it. Sometimes the Kundalini will come in the shape of a teacher that a person has become exposed to. So that would be me. The Kundalini comes dressed, or as looking like Chrism, and then that person, there's an engagement that occurs, say a tantric engagement or a physical sexual type thing, and I will get blamed for invading a person's space, and I, as a corporeal individual, had nothing to do with this, or really even as an energetic individual. It's not like astral projection, where you can go out and you can look to have sex with other people. Kundalini's not that way. You don't necessarily get to have sex unless your Kundalini wants you to have sex. And so, in the dream state, I have many, many other things that I'm doing in the dream state. It keeps me very busy, and they don't include coming to you and having those favors presented either way, them to me or me to them. So it's always the Kundalini. Always the Kundalini. Unless the Kundalini states otherwise. So the question comes to you, which one are you going to honor? Are you going to honor your fear, your trepidation about, what is this Chrism doing? Or are you going to honor that which is within you already, your Kundalini? That's the question that you get to ask yourself. And I will suggest, I'm going to influence you, how you answer that question for you. I'm going to influence this intentionally. I would suggest that you not buy into fear, that you not buy into terror, that you not buy into somebody else's fear. Don't buy into fear that you don't own. And that's easy to do because we tend to really look at fear as a very easy thing to slip into. Don't do that. Don't go there. You don't need to, unless you do. So some of those people that had a dream, and Chrism came into the dream, and the Shakti was manifesting Chrism to that person in that dream, and that person got all upset and decided that Chrism was a really bad person. There you have it. That's welcome to my life. And this happens. I mean, I don't know how many people are positively helped by these radio broadcasts, or by what Glenn Ola's website is doing, the Kundalini Awakening Systems 1.com. I get a lot of positive emails too, but it's those squeaky wheels that you want to get the oil after, and so you're going to find people that are very unhappy and very imaginative in describing their discontent with Tantra and how I teach Tantra, or Kundalini, how I teach Kundalini. And that is just as it is. I mean, they've got their opinion. Anybody can lie on the internet. I could go back and I could attack them and just, use blatant lies that they have done. But that would be contradicting my own teachings. So I just forgive them and let it go, and let this be the environment that the Shakti has given me to do her work in. And that too is a practice of Tantra. Accepting what the Shakti is giving you to learn from. Accepting what your Kundalini is giving you to learn from. And doing this with as much grace as you can possibly manage. As much of a gift of kindness and compassion that you can give to others during periods of upset for yourself also help to dislodge your own internal emotional issue. Let me bring Santara on here. Santara, wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Stretch. Good.
That was a snoring sound effect there.
That was a Santara snore. Okay, a Kunda snore. So has the sound been coming through all right? Is everything manifesting the way we would like it to come through?
Yes, the sound is excellent actually. Very good. No interference or echoes or anything like that. So very good. Yeah.
Good. Have you had any experiences that you are able to talk about that would allow you to comment on Tantra or anything like that? It's
well,
okay
my
if you
dear,
say
my dear, no, it's okay. My dear husband is waiting, is in the other room, as he often is when I'm doing the show, and I'm sure he's holding his breath.
Don't tell him that.
Don't worry, John. I suppose I would like to share something that, I'm not going to get into any, but I would like to share that after my awakening event or my awakening experience, Kundalini brought me to Tantra. And it became something that I had no real knowing about, from exactly what you've been speaking about, where, honoring the other, the sacred male, the sacred female, actually worshipping and being devotional really to the divinity within each of us, with breath and body and heart and touch and voice and all the senses, became something that I hadn't. Kundalini brought me to that, and it was a wonderful surprise to my dear husband, because neither of us had known of this previously, to come to know divinity through this, and to bring the divine, I suppose, into our being together, It has been it is another aspect. It isn't, I won't say it's another aspect, but it is a devotional thing, and it is a worshipping, and it is, unity. It's a beautiful experience. It is indeed.
Well, good. Well,
that's all I have to say.
All right, put the end of blue here.
Okay.
All right. Well, there you go. Now, for those of you that have another half, a wife or a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, really, 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 you can delve deeply into the Kundalini. You can delve deeply into it. In many cases, if you're living with one spouse that has Kundalini and the other spouse that doesn't have the Kundalini, if you've been able to find balance within that awakening, like John and Amelia have, then there will be a passage of some Kundalini. As the people experience that type of a merge, there is going to be passage of Kundalini. But the Kundalini, as we have been saying for a long time, is intelligent. It knows what's going on, and so in a way. It knows that, say, in Amelia's scenario, John can't really afford to have awakening at this time in his life. Somebody's got to to lock the door and make the rounds in the middle of the night, right? I mean, there are responsibilities that people have as a nurturer and those that are being nurtured. And, kids are a great symbol of this. The child always needs to be nurtured, and yet through the nurturing is the adult given the opportunity to give from levels of love that are not accessible for everyone. And feel free to call 347-934-0026 if you'd like to add your voice to this conversation. Looks like we have... Oh, yes, okay, yes. So we have some folks that are listening on the phone. And I'd like to say hello to Eileen right now. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Chrism.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So have you been enjoying the conversation, or do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, you had brought this up before. You talk in terms of partners. Not everybody has a partner. And I know that there are Tantra...
Eileen, you have the manatee. Not everybody has a manatee.
That's true. And actually, they may become unendangered, which is wonderful.
Well, you and your manatee friend can have as much freedom as you need.
Yeah. But seriously, it would be nice if you would address
all right. I will,
individuals
thank you.
a bit.
All right. Well, let's do that right now, my dear. So thank you for bringing that up, and I'm going to go into that right now.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome, my dear. You're welcome. Okay, so here's the deal. Not everybody's going to have partners for this. But that doesn't mean that you can't practice Tantra. It just means that there are levels of learning through the Kundalini experience that happens on an individual level that is calling to you first. Sometimes it's the equation of, know thyself first before you know thyself in a different way. Know thyself in the basic way. I should restipulate that. Know the basics of who you are. Know those basics before you assume that you can know the basics of how you are beyond that basic level. In other words, get to know the building blocks of the person that you are. And one way to do that really is, as Eileen suggested, is Tantra with the self. Tantra with the self. I'm not talking about masturbation. I'm talking about energetic exercise in a way. So a man, say the guy's out, in Antarctica, and he doesn't have anybody there to be happy with, and what does this person do that is searching and going for Kundalini, yet he's a scientist out there in Antarctica? The closest base is McMurdo Air Force Base. What do? Well, okay, you begin to use what the divine has given you to use. Narissa. Just a second, Narissa. I'll be right with you. You begin to use what the divine has given you to use. You begin to take education from the Kundalini within, but you got to be careful. There are a lot of entities that will feed off of sexual energies, and they're also skulking around here and there. But if you're not fantasizing about dominating another person or raping another person or, doing these types of sexual manipulations that are hurtful and violent to another person, well, the Kundalini can really respond well to self-exploration in the levels that Eileen is bringing up. Right. Okay, I'm just going to keep it at that point for that time here. I'm going to bring Narissa on. Hello, Narissa.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
I don't know.
Narissa?
I've just been getting into... Hello?
Narissa, can you turn your computer down?
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Hey, thank you. Okay. What's going on?
I've just been like, I don't know, it's only been about a month for me that I've really been getting into all this, and I see the changes in myself and of my past self, and I don't know, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I see all my past actions going and, you know, shaping them. I was just wondering how to help them, I suppose.
Well,
and I
what
keep
you
getting
do
the
is...
answer that I have to help myself, but I never know when I'm quite at that point.
Well, here's what you do. I mean, have you had a chance to look through the safeties at all?
Yeah, I just found the Tibetans actually a couple of days ago. I've been doing those daily, and I always thought, you know, oh, well, I'm awake, but I guess my Kundalini isn't fully awake, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah. That doesn't really matter. What really matters is your level of practice of the noble qualities. Now, the noble qualities, as you practice those, so will your children begin to practice those. So let the noble qualities of love and forgiveness, compassion, tolerance, patience, honesty, just start with those 6.
Right, and then they'll kind of pass on to my kids and
that's
myself.
Exactly. And the nice thing about your situation, Narissa, is you're recognizing the importance of this, and your Kundalini is allowing you to see its manifestation in your kids, which is a great teaching tool for you.
Right.
How to modulate your expression as a parent around your kids that demonstrates positive behaviors from them. But don't forget that they're going to have negative behaviors too. With little kids, you have to realize that they got to go through both ends of the paradigm. They have to experience the extreme bad and extreme good, right?
Right.
So they know the difference, but they don't necessarily have to do that all the time through mom. Okay. Mom does not need to be the mirror of the negativity that person's going to go through. It's much like, say, having an alcoholic parent, and we'll say it's a really bad experience. Well, the children get to see what not to do every single night, and that turns in, and what does that do to their life, right? Well, what would happen if you took alcohol out of the equation and you inserted the safety practices for Kundalini Awakening? We'd have a nation of saints.
Yeah, I think that's what we're shooting for here.
We'll just call it Saint Nation.
Yeah.
That's my new TV series.
Oh yeah, get a lot of viewers that way, eh?
Saint Nation, that's right. So the thing is, Narissa, is you need to start practicing those noble qualities purposefully.
Right.
And the nice thing, how old are they?
Before I even seen the safeties, which was really astonishing to me. Like, I didn't know there were safeties. I knew there was a Kundalini, but I didn't know of the safeties. But when I actually read them, I was actually doing a lot of things without even being told, like keeping my tongue up on my lip,
Right. I was just going to say tongue up. Yeah. You have to remember that's what I wrote about at the beginning of the show. I don't know if you've been here since the beginning, but the Kundalini itself wrote the safeties. And the very fact and what you just said is a great validation of the truth of that statement. I mean, the Kundalini is really the force that's in charge. And it wrote what you needed what you and others needed to hear at the time with regards to, what to do with the tongue tip and, what to do with the eyes or the fingertips or the chin or, any of those various things that we go through with the safeties. But if you practice the safeties, including the 5 Tibetans with your children, if you sit your children around the kitchen table and you go, okay, Johnny, who did you forgive today? What happened? And you talk to them about their forgiveness. And you talk to them about what happened. And and you congratulate them for being forgiving, you congratulate them for being tolerant of other people,
right.
And you really begin to bring levels of wisdom into their upbringing that would have otherwise gone missing.
Right. And see, that's what I think a lot of the time is, you know, we always talk about living through the heart and healing yourself, but in the past we really were never taught how to do it. We were just taught to do it, you know, told to do it.
Mm. Well, and you're absolutely right, and that kind of goes back to I think Eileen's discussion about what to do without having a partner. Do you have a partner, or are you a single mom?
Yeah, I have one. He's not as into everything, but he's supportive, so I don't know how much he's going to be into.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. But I really do appreciate all your advice, so.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Really
You're the
helpful.
new one. Are you the same Narissa on the Facebook group?
Yes, I am.
Yay! Nice to hear you. It's great. And you gave some very good advice the other night, and I just want to validate that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, very good advice for people. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, kind of just.
Go ahead. Tell it to the folks right now, because it's good advice.
Well, you know, a lot of people, they get stressed out, they get away from themselves, and they just become discouraged. And like I said to a fellow person, you know, when you have a house plant, you can skip a day of watering it. You can skip a day of meditation of the Tibetans, but on that day it starts to droop. You can skip another day. Well, then the flower begins to wilt, you know, and you can keep skipping it. But all you have to do to bring it back to health is simply water it, give it time and attention. That was my advice.
That's really good advice. Excellent advice, Narissa. Thank you, and thank you for giving it to the people here. I think you're in good shape, Narissa. But the thing is the hard part of being a parent with Kundalini is you need to really not only watch what you say or what you do around the kids, but watch what you're thinking around the kids.
Right.
Because they're going to pick up those thoughts. Those thoughts are just frequencies, and we, you know, be very careful what you're thinking.
Yeah, I've really come to realize that, you know, it's like a cycle. You know, once you get in a vicious cycle, it's really hard to break that. It can be done.
Do you have a tree in your backyard that you like?
Yeah, I have a tree right in the middle of my yard, actually.
Do you ever go to the tree and just lean against it?
Yes, I go outside barefoot a lot. Like, I really like to breathe in just that energy, that clean, fresh, you know, Mother Nature.
Yeah, that prana. So I suggest you go out to that tree and you begin to forgive yourself through any perception of not, you know, being as good as you a parent as you might want to be, or being as good a mate or a spouse as you might want to be, whatever. I want you to forgive yourself and let your kids see you doing this. And if they come over and they ask, Mom, what are you doing? You just have to tell them the truth. I'm forgiving myself, honey. Right. And then you can show them how to do it. You show him how to do it.
Very encouraging. Yep, it's all about inspiration. It really seems to be, you know, just positive reinforcement.
Well, really, because there's enough negative reinforcement in the world as it is.
Yes. Right.
Matter of fact, there's a little, it's a little out of balance towards the negative, which gives us a good reason to insert the positive. Right.
Okay. I mean, I'm often laughed at. I really am, but it does kind of get to me. But at the same time, I know that this needs to happen. I know that we need to heal. I know that there are better things than, you know.
Well, I hope you're not laughed at. Well, I guess the laughter is serving its purpose for you as well. It's causing you to be forgiving and to be tolerant.
Right. Yep.
Okay, and you know, it's just nice to know that, you know, there are really good parents like you and like Julie and Elizabeth and Amelia who are able to walk the talk in front of their kids.
Right. Well, thank you. I really do appreciate all of your energy and your encouragement and your advice. It's helpful. Really.
Well,
is.
I really know that you're doing great, Narissa. You're doing really well. For a person to be able to come up with that excellent advice about watering the flower or watering the garden, it's so true. It's so true. Keep your garden strong. Keep your Kundalini strong. Water it every day with that safety practice.
Right. And I think that's what it comes down to.
I think so. I agree. And I just want to invite you back to the show again, Narissa.
All right. Well, thank you.
Keep us updated, okay?
All right. Will do. Bye.
Okay, bye. Okay. All right. So there you have it. I mean, it's very strong teaching there. Water the plant, my friends. Water the plant. Practice the safety. Now, as we go back into the tantric areas here, it really there are some tantra positions that a person can adopt during the exchange and the blending. But it's really more the position of the heart, the position of the heart leading the mind, leading the instinct. Hey, hello, Bruno. Good to see you here, my friend. Leading the actions of the autonomic systems of reproduction. So let technique follow the heart. Let the mind follow the heart. Let the heart lead the way within the tantric experience. And let that as much as possible be in balance. Don't, I would encourage a person not to find a partner that is not at least equally in love with them as they are with that person. I mean, as much as possible, have a balance. Not as much, shall we say, of a codependency. Yet, so it also takes the right combination of two people. So you add the combination of the two people. You add the combination of the destiny or the karma. You add the level of intention within the practice. You add the interest in doing the practice on a daily or nightly level, and then you have a high degree of propensity for Kundalini. Okay? Yeah. There's a lot going on with this. It's not just put a quarter in the machine and turn the handle. This is the machine putting a quarter in you and turning the handle of your tailbone. Okay. So really understand that. Really get to know that, and get to know that in a very, very real way. The Kundalini is the person in charge, not your ego. Within the tantric understandings, Tantra and the sacred feminine, that is Kundalini. That is Kundalini. Sacred male aspect is just not quite as emphasized as it is, say, in the patriarchal systems. With the Kundalini awake within you, it will begin to steer you into the certain practices that are beneficial to you and your Kundalini awakening equation. Just listen to what Narissa was saying. She hadn't come across the safeties before. She was given the link. Her Kundalini is teaching her. And remember Fashti who came online and who is here today. Hello again, Fashti. And Fashti and all his very, very interesting experiences, the Kundalini is teaching him. And sometimes the teachings are directly from the Kundalini, sometimes they're given to the teacher, and then the teacher is to give that teaching to the individual. But within the tantric sense, it's really a surrendering of yourself to the sacred feminine within you and within your partner. Okay. Within you and within your partner. Some people go, oh, I don't like to take "I love you, honey" out of my experience with my loved one, and I'm not asking you to do that. But if you're practicing Tantra, I am going to ask you to expand that. Expand that, "Oh, I love you, honey," to the sacred gender, and into honoring that sacred gender within the other person and yourself. Make sure you do the work. Make sure you do the emotional safeties. Make sure you're an active, forgiving, tolerant, honest individual. Seriously, folks, this is why people have such a problem, with Tantra in general, or Tantra teachers, is because, they're talking about something, number one, that is taboo, and number two, they're talking about something that is so powerful that it can emotionally begin to blow a person out of balance. And if you're not practicing emotional safety, such as forgiveness, tolerance, patience, meditation, silence, if you're not practicing any of those 5 qualities, you're setting yourself up for a real problem. One of my big sins as a teacher is not being a policeman to the degree that I need to be. Never was much for that. But I still pay for that lapse. I still pay for that. You don't need to. You can come into Tantra clean and pure and excellent. Excellent in the way you hear your Kundalini. Excellent in the way you embark and you explore on the journey that the Kundalini is going to lead you into. Excellence in your surrender and your total sublimation to the will and the agenda of the Kundalini as best you can in your life at this point. As best you can in your life at this point. Tantra is a powerful way to approach the Kundalini. It's a very powerful way. It deals with taboo subjects in the West and in England and Ireland, and the West being basically, I guess, everything west of India. Seriously. Tantra is not seen as holy and pure when it should be. It is holy. It is pure. It is there to help you awaken the Kundalini in a way that allows you to understand the gifts of surrender and the gifts of the Kundalini divine agenda upon you, rather than having it come on to you unbeknownst and frightening. Let it come to you in a way that nurtures the divine within you, that allows you to learn, allows you to actively participate. You're not just getting on your knees and going, "Oh God, send me that lottery ticket." You're not doing that. With Kundalini, you're going, "Oh God, don't send me that lottery ticket. I like things nice and simple." I'm kidding. But you're not praying to God in a way to give you something. You're giving something to God by praying and by manifesting a prayer that includes the luminous fluids that is giving God to God. That is recognizing God within and God without. God inside and God outside. Do you see that? Do you understand that? Any questions about that? If there are any questions, call me at 347-934-0026. We're coming to the end of the program here. 16 minutes left. So anybody who would like to call, I would like to encourage you to call. We have a nice group of people here, really nice energy. Very nice energy. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to segue. Also, okay, here's my, guess I'm not going to segue. In the West, we are inundated with, what's the word, pornography. We are inundated with pornography. Our sexual opportunities and choices are being made for us based upon the lowest, some of the lowest standards of appreciation. So I would do your best to steer clear of pornography. I would rather have you self-stimulate to a positive fantasy than to, self-stimulate in your mind to a negative example. Okay? Let everything be respectful and let everything be of love. Okay, do your best to stay within those parameters. Okay, and so, hi Sukha, you're typing. So, within those parameters of respect and validation of who you are and how you are, how we all are, really focus on your surrender. So in a way, respectfully surrender yourself to the Kundalini. Respectfully give yourself into this process with respect, with self-respect. The Kundalini knows the moral code that you live in right now in your society. If you're from Italy, well, there's a certain cultural norm. If you're from Croatia or Bosnia, there's a certain cultural norm. If you're from France, there's a certain cultural norm. If you're from Ireland or England, Spain, Finland, Scandinavia, there are different cultural norms in all of those areas. And the Kundalini knows all of them. It knows your cultural norm. If you're in India, it knows that you live in a society that, that practices some hurtful things upon women. And so it may begin to outline a certain method of interaction with femininity in your life that is of a more positive bent. Bye-bye. Okay. Bye, Sukha. Hang on, I got to write a smiley face here. There we go. I think that worked. Oh, well. How does that not work?
It worked, Kirtan. The smiley face is there.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh. Thanks. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. So let the noble qualities begin to create your reality. I mean, that's basically what we're coming down to. Even within the tantric equation, let the noble qualities infatuate themselves or insert themselves into the emotional divine qualities of tantric expression. And I'm talking about fully penetrative tantric expressions here. I'm not talking about going through the clothes or any of those things. And, that's, to me, that's just people, well, never mind. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the real deal, the where the rubber meets the road, shall we say? Oh, God, that was a terrible. Okay, anyway, I'm going to stop with those. Okay, so with the Tantra, it's very powerful, it's very unique, And getting back to Eileen's concern a little bit here, what do you do if you're a single person and you want to practice Tantra? Explore yourself, number one. Don't give yourself satisfaction, number two. Do not have a luminous, fluidic response. Save that for your Kundalini. When the Kundalini comes, when it takes that spark that you're handling it through not giving yourself that satisfaction, when all those sparks add up and they create a larger spark to affect your Kundalini, well, then you'll be very thankful. It's very similar to a buddy of mine worked for the Air Force, the United States Air Force, and they had this one airplane that you could only start with 2 very large automotive engines to turn the motor of this very powerful aircraft. And this is what you're doing, is you're providing a little car engine every time you deny yourself the explosion of luminous fluids. Okay? Every time you deny yourself that way, wait a minute. What's that? Mike Strong wrote, Californication-style Tantra. Gosh, I haven't even seen that. Is it about Tantra, Mike, that show? Is it about Tantra? I hope. Oh, where did everybody go? Oh. Wow. Did I lose everybody?
No, Chrism, we can hear you, and the chat room is still up, and Mike is typing, and Bruno says he's still here, so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, I just lost all my online users, so I have no idea who it is. Thank you, Fashi. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, Mike. Yeah. So I haven't seen the show Californication-style Tantra, but anything that has Californication in it, I can pretty much read between the lines. Oh, I see. It is a term I use for the way sexology is marketed as Tantra. That's a very good point, Mike. Gosh, with 8 minutes left in the show. It is. Yeah, they like to come in on the coattails of Tantra, because Tantra is a noble practice. Sexology, I think, is a little more challenging. I mean, they're willing to go into other areas that I don't think a tantric person is willing to go into, depending, of course, on what flavor of Tantra you're doing. The flavor of Tantra that I'm really only teaching ever in my life is Kundalini Tantra. That's it. And my Kundalini Tantra is so unique from, say, other practices of it, you could actually call it Chrism Tantra. Because I fully insert spiritual practice technique inside of loving, beneficial instruction. Because I know the power of creativity that the human sexual being possesses, and I also know that in my understanding, there are only 2 types of children that can be birthed this way. One is a Kundalini child, and the other is your normal, 10 fingers, 10 toes human child. The human child you'll see, the Kundalini child you will feel, and you will become that child. Just look in the back of the SF Weekly. Thanks, Mike. I'll be there. I think, maybe. So, yeah. Mike is giving me instructions on where to find out more about sexology marketed as Tantra. And evidently there's a San Francisco Weekly that gives it on the back, which I'm sure it does. So anyway, if you have a quick question for this episode, please call 347-934-0026. If you don't have a quick question, I'm going to come on over to Santara here. Wake up! Wake up, a little Santara. Wake up.
I'm awake.
Is there anything you would like to add to this program, my dear?
What I would like to know, not in relation to Tantra, Chrism, I've said really what I wanted to say, I guess. What I would like to add, though, is just maybe to return to Elizabeth, what Elizabeth said about the ticket, and just in case people came to the show later, we were talking about the seminar that Rosemary is organising, the Kundalini Awakening Seminar with Chrism on September the 27th and 28th. And Elizabeth kindly let us know that the North, on Delta Airlines from the Northwest, you can get a round trip ticket for $228. So if anybody is thinking of flying from the Northwest, maybe now would be a good time to consider buying your ticket at $228 for the round trip.
That is a good price, I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, Santara. And thank you, Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez. Thank you for that information, too. And for Rosemary, thank you for putting on this seminar. It's a huge responsibility, Rosemary, and I appreciate what you and Eileen have done. So thank you very much once again. Thank you. Let's see, Mike Strong is adding, I've been taught that Tantra is the practice of combining mantra, yantra, mudra, etc., and learning to do it while sitting, standing, walking, talking, including sex. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, Mike. I wouldn't disagree with that. Yantra, maybe not so much if you're driving. Maybe hold back on the mudra too, while we're driving. It looks to me I'm getting real Eastern. There's a lot of Eastern flavor that I'm getting to your response there, and it's good. It is all good. And the yantra doesn't have to be, when you're doing a yantra practice, it doesn't have to be with the Sri yantra, by the way. Okay, and mantra, yantra, mudra, yeah, it is, and it's something that you can do all the time after a while. But the thing is you want to stay grounded as well. The idea is not to have Kundalini and then leave the body. The idea is to have the Kundalini while you're living in the body, and to have that very special experience of having the divine physical, the physical divine. What a huge joy that is. And Mike, I feel that strongly in you. Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez, I feel it strongly in you, and Vashti, and Julie, and Narissa. I mean, everybody here in our little meeting space, I feel very positive vibrations coming through. And I know that you'll be feeling the vibrations coming through me. Now, I'm going to end the show this time with a series of alms. And so I want to say thank you, Santara, John O'Connor. I'd like to say thank you, Rosemary, and Narissa, Josephine, and Eileen, and Mike, and Bruno. See, I can't see. My thing went away here. I can't see everybody on there. Let's see if I can get that back here. No. Okay. Everyone, thank you. Here we go.
Herr Kahn, wie holt man eigentlich das Double?
Ganz einfach, mit einem neuen Samsung QLED TV.
Jetzt QLED TV Aktionsgerät kaufen und Gutscheine für 6 Monate Live-Fußball aus europäischen Top-Ligen bekommen. Über Sky Ticket, The Zone und Eurosport Player in der Samsung Sportworld App. Mehr Infos auf samsung.de/sportworld.
Nur bis zum 17. Juni.